Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And every week I come on and I'm just like so excited about the guest, but every week the guest is just amazing. And so today on the show, I'd like to welcome Ross Guieb, Executive Director of the George H.W. Combat Development Complex at Texas A&M and retired Army Colonel. As a senior staff executive, Ross played an instrumental role in the development of Army Futures Command and the reorganization of the Army's modernization enterprise, and brings to the Texas A&M University System tremendous insight on how to best support national security research priorities. He brings a wealth of information on leadership, successful habits, and the benefits of community service. So thanks for joining us today, Ross.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think my mom wrote that intro.
No, this is just our research on you. You're
Okay.
a pretty amazing guy. And, I love the first conversation that you and I had. And do you remember where that was? Like our first true conversation?
It wasn't Sussex, North Dallas. Where was it?
We were at Y Texas, a Y Texas
Oh,
event.
that's right.
At the
That's right.
formation. And you
That's
and I,
right.
we just somehow tripped across our love of young executives and really empowering that next generation. And I was like, feed me, tell me more, let's work together. And you were like, okay, calm down. But you also, before that, you had presented an award to Bill Wallace, the founder of Success North Dallas. Can you tell us a little bit about that award?
Yeah, that award was it was a challenge coin, which is now more available, in mainstream business and in the military. But kind of the background of those coins was, in earlier times, soldiers used to get paid in different ways, and that was through coins. And then later on, we found that those coins in more modern times, it was a sense of belonging when units didn't really understand who was in their units or had patches. They presented a coin, so later on, you knew you belonged to that unit. So the idea is that Bill will always belong, no matter where he is. He will always belong to that organization, or at least that idea or ideal.
That is really beautiful. And you actually presented that to him as he was retiring from being the founder and CEO of Success North Dallas. And I just thought that was such a beautiful day and such a beautiful moment. There were so many people that stood up to give him awards for his 34 years of service up to that point. And it was just a really beautiful day. So I thank you for being there and for participating in that.
Thank you. Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you.
But let's talk about you, because, as I'm getting to know you and I'm learning more about you, you've had a spectacular career. So tell me about yourself and your career as an Army Colonel and now Executive Director of, this is a really long title,
Right.
the Executive Director at the George H.W. Combat Development Complex at Texas A&M. Did I get that right?
You did. Right.
Okay, good.
Well, first off, it's really hard to speak about myself, but I'll kind of shorten it up a little bit. And I joined first generation, American, and I joined because my family came to the United States because of military service by my grandfather. So I felt like that was a way that he showed a way to give back in this public service. and I always, idolized him for doing that on behalf of his country and then now his new country. So, I joined. I went to college. I became an officer, and 24 moves later, it was time for me to retire. So I did just about 30 years. I met so many people, which I learned from. I had great assignments, made numerous deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, places like Haiti, Honduras, Panama, Kosovo. Um, my sons have been to my twin sons that are graduating from Texas A&M and commissioning. They were in 9 different schools. My oldest son, who went to UCLA, he did more than that, and it really is more about their sacrifices in support of national security than it is my positions throughout my Army career. I I ended up um, after brigade command here at Fort Hood. I I was then XO to the Secretary of the Army, and then right after that, I was landed in Army Futures Command, which is in Austin, Texas. Right, so we stood up a 4-star command that helped reorganize the Army, the largest reorganization since 1974. And it landed right here in Texas for a lot of good reasons, because of the culture, because access to capital, because access to talent, R1 research, and the collaboration between what we called at that time the triangle, right? Austin, San Antonio, College Station, Houston, and DFW coming together to collaborate on national security initiatives. And so it was natural for me to continue to move forward in public service and continue to work for Texas A&M University in the things that we do here in integrated hypersonics and integrated autonomy. So my entire family has been just pleased that we were able to get 3 more years with our youngest son. My oldest son, I couldn't gain that time back, but we'll have to make it up on the back end.
When you get the grandbabies, that's when you make it up.
Right. We're slowing down a little bit, but yes.
So I want to tell you a funny story. Do you mind if I share something with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned Fort Hood, okay?
Mhm.
And you may not remember this. When were you at Fort Hood?
I was there twice. I was there from 2003 to 2006, where I deployed to Iraq twice in that time frame, and then I was there from 2014 to 2016.
So this was before you were there, okay?
Okay.
So fun fact about me, I used to race dirt bikes. So, and I didn't do motocross, I did cross country. And
Okay.
one of the places that we raced was Fort Hood.
Okay.
And I earned my very first place at Fort Hood.
There you go.
So,
I mean, I would never have guessed. If it was before me, you must have been racing when you're like 2 years old or something like that.
I'm not going to disclose how old I was, but it was before
Okay.
1990. How about that?
Okay.
So that's just kind of fun. So if you, and can you, what is your favorite position that you held while you were in the military?
I think anytime you're given the honor and privilege of commanding a formation, I think those are your favorite assignments, right? So, and it's the most assignments. It's the assignment with the most responsibility. So, as a company commander, you command a formation of 180 men and women, sons and daughters of the United States. As a battalion commander, you're a lieutenant colonel. You may have 1,250, and then as a brigade commander, you may have 4,500.
Wow.
So those to me you cherish, because the the people you get to lead, you leave a legacy of things that are important to you, important to the Army, important to our organization. And then taking deploying the soldiers to Afghanistan and Iraq during those, those really rough times, you cherish that. There are a lot of good times, and then there are a lot of times where you kind of reminisce and think about the families and their losses, and keep in contact with all those families.
My son just recently transitioned out of the Air Force, and
Hmm.
fortunately, he was never deployed. I say fortunately, he says not fortunately.
Right.
He
I
hoped for a
understand that.
deployment,
I understand that.
but I can't imagine being that person that has to make that decision. That would be so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I those aren't easy decisions, and there are a lot of times where being in command is fantastic, and then there's those times where you have to make decisions where you know it's it's not as it's not as pleasant, but decisions need to be made with the best information that you have at the time, with the best equipment, and the best um, you know the best that we can do as a country.
So, how has your exposure to so many different sectors shaped your core values?
Yeah, I tell people that it was when you're retiring and you have Army values. We use the acronym leadership, um, LDRSHIP, is what are everything from loyalty, discipline. I mean, it's all there. And then when I switched to Texas A&M, it's the same values, only they call it RELLIS, RELLIS, respect, excellence, leadership, loyalty, the whole gamut. And I tell people, I just went from, green camouflage to maroon camouflage. And I did have a lot of opportunities in industry, but I felt most comfortable where, everybody had the same values, not saying that industry doesn't, but I also have the opportunity to work with industry in my current capacity and in my last couple of capacities. So I'm excited, going forward, that we can continue to, just do the things that we do and feel comfortable in our own skin. So
And I love that. And I think that, so many times we have such a narrow view of the world. We haven't seen what a lot of us, most of us haven't seen what you've seen. Some of us may have never even left the United States before, right?
mhm.
So, as a retired military colonel who's seen the world, um, what do you think it has to offer? If you were speaking into the youth today, maybe somebody that's just about to graduate college, what does the world have to
Yeah,
offer?
there, you can see a lot of things in the news. You can see, you can read about it, but I would say there is still a lot of hope, right? I sit on a nonprofit board, on the Texas Science and Engineering Fair,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a nonprofit. You do something for your soul. You want to make sure that you give back to the community is part of my ethos. And you can see the youth, and you can tell that there's hope, and two, the future is bright, right? No matter what you read and how disparate it seems, when you see the young people, and that's throughout the world. Like I've said, Afghanistan, I've said Haiti, I've said Kosovo, I said Iraq. You name a place, it's really the bright eyes of the youth that kind of bring you back and give you the energy that you need to go forward. So I would say hope, and the future is bright, is what I would tell these young people. And then, if you don't try, you have 100% of not attaining.
That
But if
is.
you try, you have a good chance of getting to what your aspirations are.
And so, what would you say to the young professional? So, you just told them to try,
Mhm.
and they try and they fail. What advice do you give them?
Learn.
Mm.
Learn from failures. There is nobody that is 100%, has a 100% batting average.
Yeah.
So one thing is to try, and when you fail, and we're all going to fail, we all have failed. You learn, you fix, and then you try again, right? So never let anybody put you in a place where you think that you can't try again. And that's a lot of that is just resilience. A lot of that is just, self-esteem and self-awareness that, there are sometimes timing is everything, and sometimes there is just a pathway to success. And it sometimes, as you know, in what you do, it's just not written out and scripted.
And it's so hard with these young professionals today, and I have a kind of a two-pronged question here, because number one, if they watch the news, how do they know what to
Hmm.
believe? I don't even know what to believe.
Hmm.
And then number two, they see all this stuff on social media, the TikToks, the Instagrams, and they think, oh, that's real over there. I mean, do you encounter that a lot when you're counseling these young professionals?
Yeah, the first thing I think of is you have to be well read, right, and have to have more um, information than just from one or two sources to give you a kind of a full breadth of what is going on in the world. So if you're reading and listening to things solely on the left, you're going to have a left slanted view. Same thing on the right. Um, what I would encourage people to do is, if you really are trying to learn something, look at everything from different lenses and
Hmm.
different perspectives, and then make a decision for yourself. And there is probably no better teacher than going to experience something for yourself rather than through somebody else's lenses.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good right there. Choose your own lens. Don't let somebody
Right.
else choose your lens for you. That is really, really good. Okay, I have a random question.
Okay,
Do you make your bed every morning?
I do.
Do you? Okay,
Hmm.
follow up question. Do you make the
Yep,
bed when you're in a hotel?
I do.
Somehow I knew the answer to that question.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. I know one other person that does that.
Yeah, and it's not, I love Admiral McCraven, and I know what he said in his speech to the other school there
Hmm.
in Austin. Um, but I think it's repetition, right? I think that's something that's just innate in your head, that once you get up, you just pull the covers and you tighten it up, and you don't even know you're doing it. Honestly, I think it's just that is ingrained in your mind to do certain things, and that's one of them.
You know, I do make my bed every morning, but I have a little caveat here because I have a little 5 pound Pomchi. I actually have two Pomchis, but the little 5 pound one's the one that cannot stand and not be under covers. And so I
Hmm.
make the bed, and then I have to fold one corner of the comforter back over so she can get under the covers while I'm gone during the day.
There you go.
That's pathetic.
Well, you either train yourself or someone trains you, right? Or
I'm
I don't
so
know which.
trained
I'm
by the
not going to
dogs.
judge.
They rule the world. They absolutely rule the world. Okay, so aside from making your bed, what's one habit you do every day that's you feel like has made you successful?
I like to exercise, right? So I like to either go on a short 30 or 40-minute run, or just have a cup of coffee just to reflect on either yesterday or the next or that day, right? Or even that week. And when I get some alone time, and that's either drinking coffee, because I don't run every day. I used to run every day, but once you hit the age that I'm at, you can't run every day because it's detrimental. But um, I do like to just reflect on my own and kind of close my eyes and think about the things that need to be accomplished, the things that were accomplished, and if they weren't, why weren't they? How can we get better every day?
I love that. So, and that's one of the things I talk about all the time is, and that's where we hit what I call our Buddha level,
Hmm.
and it's very much we can't stay there all the time, but we can touch that by either just having that
Yeah.
quiet time like what you just described, through meditation, through prayer, and sometimes even just connecting with the breath, just having
Right.
that calmness, connecting the mind to the heart. So I think that's really beautiful. What is What are some techniques, though, on the other hand, that you might recommend to help break a bad habit that maybe somebody has formed?
I think you have to be deliberate. I used to tell people when I used to counsel people, what we call our fitness reports or our officer evaluation reports. I'd never wanted to surprise anybody with their rating, right? I
Mm.
wanted to coach them along the way so that, when they got their final grade, so to speak, it wasn't a surprise. Whether it was going to be really good, is going to be mediocre, or was not going to be as good as they want. And I never really focused on the things that they were good at. I said, tell me three things that you're not good at.
Okay.
And then tell me how you are going to deliberately fix those things. So if somebody said, sir, one of my problems is English is a second language. And I would say, okay, so what are you going to do about making that weakness in your mind? It's a weakness. How are you going to make that a strength? What is your plan? And then I will work with you on that plan to make you get to where you need to get to, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, and so what if I came to you and I said my weakness is technology?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I scream in the office, I need a millennial.
Right. Right. No, I would, one thing is we surround ourselves with good people, right? I once was stationed in London, and real quick story, real quick vignette, and and I was an exchange officer, so I worked for the British at that time. But whenever I wanted to get good U.S. of A. time or American time, I would go to the Marine House. And one day, General Krulak, the former commandant of the Marine Corps, and I'm Army, he
Mm-hmm.
came in. He called us all. Somebody called us all to attention, even though he was retired, and stand up, and we're all in suits. And I asked him, like, what do you do? What does a retired Marine Corps commandant do after he retires? And he told me that he ran this financial institution, and they provide houses in Switzerland, London, and New York. And I was like, wow, he must be a finance guy. And he said, no. He says, I surround myself with good people, and I've been trained, just like you've been trained, to ask the right questions of the experts around me, and I get paid to make a decision,
Mm.
right? And then I thought to myself, like, wow, he really, simplified that, because we did that as a company commander. You had a supply sergeant, you had a maintenance sergeant, and you don't really look at it from that lens until somebody that has that experience explains that to you, and you're thinking like, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I would say surround yourself with people that are very knowledgeable. And then one thing that I found as well is when I have somebody that is maybe junior in rank or junior in a position help explain something to me because they're the expert, it really empowers them to say they really help the boss, right? And then they feel good about themselves, and you feel good about yourself because you're learning something. And then they go off and say, you know what? I just spoke to the commander, and I taught him or her how to use this rifle or this piece of equipment. And then the word resonates that you're a human being and that you're willing to learn.
That is really beautiful. That is such good advice right there. We could just stop right now. That was
Okay, let's
really
do it.
good. Okay, I do have another question for you though.
Okay.
So, coming out of the military, I know discipline is key, right? So, why is it important to practice discipline in the workplace as a civilian and in your personal life?
Yeah. I think discipline and teamwork go together, right?
Mm.
So, Casey, if I relied on you to do certain things every day, I have to understand that you are disciplined to do that. So then I don't have to think about what you are doing. I'm thinking about what I do for the team. The problem is when you start thinking about what everybody else is doing for their parts of the team, you can't you can't do your own job because you're worried about everybody else's job.
Mm.
And then, so the same thing in the military, like, if we're on a 3-soldier team, um, I rely on everybody to do their job, because if I'm thinking about, are they doing their job, I'm not doing mine. So that's why discipline in our business is really important. And then it carries on into, into the civilian world in the industry. I rely on the CIO to be the CIO. You may ask him some questions or her some questions about X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, that person is the expert. And if we can't rely on certain people, then that's where we have problems, right? So discipline to do the things that you're paid to do, discipline to follow the PD that you're remitted to follow and you're getting paid to do is really, really, I think, important, is being part of the team. Not everybody could be a quarterback, or
True.
else, you need linemen, you need wide receivers, you need tight end, you need everybody to do their job.
That's such a unique perspective, and I don't think I've ever had anybody, and maybe it's not unique, but I've not heard it explained that way before, linking the discipline to the teamwork and explaining why that's so important. And that just kind of reminds me of a lot of these, new managers or even older managers that get in there and they micromanage, and what they're doing is they're telling their team that they're not disciplined enough, or they don't believe they're disciplined
Right.
enough to trust them.
And that's a trust thing. Like,
Exactly.
you're basically telling them, like, I don't trust you. But here's the thing, I don't want to if you're calling the plays, Casey, listen, I don't want to let you down. Like, I want to do my job so Casey can focus on the other things and not have to worry about mine. Like, I am doing mine. And you could, you tweak it, or, you can amp me up, you can do different things. But at the end of the day, I'm doing my job on behalf of, the team. I'm not letting the team down.
That is so good. I can't wait to go back and re-listen to this episode, because just everything was good, but just those last 2 nuggets, I'm just like, wow, you just blew my mind. I love that. So we are almost done here, but
Okay.
nobody gets away without answering my VIP questions.
Ooh, okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So if you were chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, what 3 things or people would you take with you?
Ooh. Okay, I would say Harry Potter would be
Explain
one.
yourself.
So I believe that a child will tell you how they feel and what they want. Right? They have no filters.
Okay.
And let alone he's a wizard, right?
Yep.
Let alone he is a wizard. So that is beside the point. But you want somebody that sees things from a different lens than you see, from my perspective, right? And I could have picked, any kind of child prodigy, or just, any of my 3 sons, probably. It's just, he had the extra, skill set of being a wizard. So, but it's really like a child has a perspective that you and I as an adult have lost. Just like, a child will say what they feel, as when you're walking in the grocery store and they say something to whomever. And
Yes.
I think you need that when you're in an austere environment like Mars. I think the second person is Harriet Tubman, which is kind of weird, right? But you want somebody that is bold and audacious and willing to take a chance for what he or she believes to be right. So when you start the underground, when you can, escape from slavery, and you can start the underground, and you can do all these things, that person is courageous, and that person believes in what they're doing, or else, it's a life or death thing. And then I would say, this is probably more cliche, because I would say my family, but I would say Jesus, because then, I think you could ask all the things that you always wanted to ask. And, storytelling in that kind of environment, I think, would be very beneficial because we feel like there's a lot of time to pass and to understand, the things that, in the perspective of what was written versus what was said would be very interesting because there's a lot of literalists, there's a lot of not literalists, not to get religious, but just out of curiosity and, out of faith, I'd want to know that. Is that weird or no?
I don't think that's weird. I've actually had Jesus before.
Yeah. I mean, but the three together, I know they're
think the
very
three are an
eclectic
interesting
group.
combination, but I'm totally a Harry Potter fan, so I'm on board with that.
Okay.
Love me some Harry Potter. I actually started reading Harry Potter to my kids when they were little, way back when they first came out, while we were in London. And my youngest son at the time, he was like, what is it, 9 3/4? We were in the subway and he was like, where's the 9 3/4 gate? I want to go to Hogwarts. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
Not real. Don't run into the wall.
I love it.
Okay. So what is one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
We spoke about that a little bit. I like physical fitness in different forms. I'm not a very big stretcher. I probably should do some yoga, but I'll challenge myself to do that. But really, I like to physical fitness just to kind of clear my brain. Even if I'm not going to go as hard as I did, back in the day, I would say that, it's important for me to, keep my health up and, lead by example when you're talking to people about, ensuring that, you have a clean mind and clean body.
That's amazing. All right, my final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
Ooh, I would say family man, public servant. I would say leadership over likership, and his work is not done.
Oh,
I would kind of segue into those different categories and hopefully any pieces or parts of that resonates with the people that are reading it.
well, it resonates with me for sure. I mean, obviously we had a really strong connection when we first met, and I just thought it was important to help share your message. How do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you?
Well, they can email me, or they can get on LinkedIn, and or they can just email me a note, send me a note, get on LinkedIn, and say let's connect. Mentorship is my passion. Leadership is my passion, and it's one of those things that you want to leave a legacy of leaving what we used to say, leave your foxhole better than when you received it, right? So leave your room, leave your office, leave those things better than when you received it, I would say. So if you could put a link on there to my email address
Absolutely.
for this, I have no problem doing that, or my LinkedIn profile. I'd love to, and I look forward to talking to people that really want to make a change for good, not only for themselves, not only for the community, but really, globally.
I love that. And I just want to thank you in advance for coming to pour into our Success North Dallas Young Executives in June. We meet the second Tuesday of the month. So if you're in the Dallas area, we would love to have you join us and hear Ross speak. This is a free event to attend. So it could be, I know it's going to be a really good one. So I look forward to seeing you when you're in town for that. And Ross, thank you so much for your time today. And I just have one last thing to say to you.
Okay, Casey.
You are a VIP.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.